Welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap podcast with your hosts, Jody Roscoe and Heather Fisher. We're talking about all things downsizing, from our own experiences with clients to guest experts. Let's make downsizing easier, one conversation at a time. Hello, and welcome to the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. I'm Jody Roscoe.
I'm Heather Fisher.
And today we're going to talk about selling our house as is versus fixing it up. So which way should we do that? What are the differences? What does that mean?
Yeah, a lot of strategy involved in deciding which way to go. A lot of it's dependent on what your goals are, the house itself, and what's going to bring you, the best result. And this is what we help people with every day as realtors, coming up with that strategy that's right for your situation. And so we'll talk a little bit about, what might point you to one towards the other. And in the end, it really is best to give us a call, give the professionals a call, that are looking at this every day and in so many houses and can save you from wasting time that you might not have or spending money that you don't need to spend to still get the best result for your home sale.
For sure. We are always saying we would rather talk to you sooner than later because we just want to make sure that if you're thinking about doing things, we find people all the time that are like, hey, I did this, and this. And I'm like, okay, but you didn't need to on something. And maybe there was something you should have done that you didn't do. And we really are thoughtful about when we say to people, hey, we think you should do this or that. What does that look like? Is that timing work for them? Does that monetarily work for them? Are they going to get more money out of that change than they would putting into it? So we really talk about what that looks like for people. So we would always rather talk to you sooner than later, as would most real estate agents who really have their pulse on what that looks like. So again, if you're looking for a real estate agent in your area, give us a call. We can connect you to somebody great, or connect with us and if you're in our area, and we can help you with that. Even if you're thinking, okay, my move might be a year from now.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we're in the field working with buyers and sellers every day, it may have been a long time since you've sold a home, and we can really help guide on those choices that a buyer might be finding value in, so that you don't spend the money on an update that you didn't need to do, or the wrong choice of what you replace things with, the wrong colors or type of flooring, things like that. You really want that expert guidance if you are going to do a few things.
Yes. So why does this matter? So, everybody faces this crossroad, like, should we fix it up or should we let it go and just lower the price? Honestly, that's the difference, is if you're going to spend money fixing it up or if you're going to lower the price and sell it as is.
Yeah, I think people think about a lot of emotion around this and wondering if they have to fix everything that's wrong with the house. And, there's a lot of guilt and pride and fear of leaving money on the table.
Right. We see it go both ways. So sometimes it's about, I would never want to leave a house like this, in this condition. This has been bothering me for 20 years and I've lived with it like this. But now that I'm going to sell it, I couldn't possibly, leave it like that for the next person, because you have pride in, whether you want that product, what you're passing along. And so, yes, you have pride in what you're passing along. So sometimes it's that, but that doesn't mean that you're not passing along a great property. And as long as everybody knows what the situation is, I think that's the key there. And then sometimes people feel guilty. Oh my gosh, I should have fixed this before. I don't want to leave it for the next person. Or sometimes they're just really afraid, like, what if I, leave some money on the table? And so sometimes you really have to look at that like you're spending money, right? So are you leaving it on the table or not is the question.
Yeah. It's always a math problem of, if I spend this, to our best estimate, are you going to get that return plus more? Because if you spend $2,000 and the return you get from that is $2,000, but you spent time and energy to get that repair or update done, that's not a winning problem that winning math problem.
Yeah, unless we're in a market, it depends on what the market's like too. If we're in a market where things have gotten really slow and you just have to be the best one on the, in the MLS, you have to be the best one to be sold, maybe it is worth that, so it's not just the house itself too, it's what kind of competition are we looking at and what does that look like. So it's not about making the house perfect. We don't have to make the house perfect, but we do need to position it correctly for the right buyer. And then we need to know which buyer we're positioning it for. Yeah. So that's kind of what that choice boils down to. So,
yeah, I think one of the biggest parts of the equation is looking at what your why of selling is. Sometimes time is more important to someone's strategy than every last dollar. Sometimes the financial concerns of needing, that money for the next step is the most important factor. Sometimes there's a combination, but it's finding that right mix between the two so that you can get it sold in the shortest amount of time possible, if that's what you need, and also at the price that the market will bring for it, the best price.
Yeah, so a lot of times I'll say, what's more important to you, time or money? And they'll be like, well, both. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work totally like that, right? Yeah. So the lower the price, the faster it'll sell. The higher the price, the longer it'll take. And so we want to find that perfect spot where we are taking the amount of time that works for you and being able to get that highest price for that time frame.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both would be wonderful, but it just doesn't work that way all the time.
Right. Yeah. Right. So what's your urgency? What does that look like? Is there a health problem? Is there urgency that needs to happen right away? Maybe that means really the money isn't that important.
Yeah, and I think that word urgency happens at those crisis moments where those things have the least amount of flexibility. So as always, just thinking about these things well in advance of an immediate need gives you more flexibility to look at different options and different plans where you narrow your options when it's more of a crisis mode.
Yeah. So let's talk about as is. What's the advantage of that? When is that the right choice? So as is has the least stress and fewer surprises and all of that. So when you're selling a property as is, what that means is you're saying kind of upfront, we're not fixing anything. And when you have buyers come and look, that doesn't mean that they can't have inspections and kind of know what they're getting into. What it means is you've said up front, hey, we don't have the means or funds to fix anything, or we're just not willing to at the price that we've put it at. We put it at a price that we know that is, selling lower than market value, and at this price, you're going to go ahead and take on anything that you find. So buyers may still do inspections when you're selling it as is. It depends, but the benefits are going to be that it's going to go faster. You're not going to be asked for repairs or have any delays around the repairs. You're not going to have to oversee any contractors or deal with it. You have a better control over the timing of what happens because there's not going to be something that pops up in there. They're going to either take it or they're not going to take it. So, yeah.
So the properties where we see this most often would be selling a property as part of an estate or inherited properties from someone else. If back to that crisis mode, if the seller is physically or emotionally unable to take on the projects, if the home, if your strategy going in was to just price it for the condition that it's at and not deal with that burden of going down that road of repairs, or if it's a hot market and there's a lot of cash buyers and investors, that's back to that quickest timeline. If you have a cash buyer or an investor, they can usually close quicker than someone financing. So all of that works together for a quicker sale in some instances.
And that usually is who's buying as is properties is an investor. And so sometimes they do their own kind of, inspection. They look through and since they buy a lot of properties, they can kind of tell what issues they're going to have with the property. So a lot of times it is an investor. It often is cash. So less even problems, or, much easier. No mortgage to have to approve or not approve.
Yeah.
And I think what we see in these properties most of the time is that they're properties that have slipped into disrepair because maybe whoever's living there hasn't been able to keep them up, or maybe nobody's been living there for a year or two because something happened. But generally, when we sell properties as is, it's generally because
deferred maintenance
Yes.
issues, things like that.
And so it's not like you can easily be like, hey, I'm just going to put in some new carpet and paint and it's going to be better. They're usually bigger things. There's usually some deferred maintenance in maybe the roof, or maybe the furnace, or maybe both, or maybe the windows, and maybe the bathrooms and the kitchens are very outdated and or not fully working. So that's kind of when we go to a property and it's not like one or two things could be updated to really bring it to a place. It's kind of like more of a bigger snowball. That's usually when we go with as is.
Yeah.
Because when you go with an as is property, there is a mindset around that with buyers that there's a lot of stuff wrong with it, and that may or may not be true. And so we think thoroughly through that as is designation, that language, when we go to sell a property, because we don't want that to be the thought process if it's not true. If it's just like we go to a lot of houses who might be outdated a little bit in their style. And maybe the kitchens and bathrooms might be a little bit outdated, but the people who have lived there have taken meticulous care of the property. And any of the big things, roofs, windows, HVAC, all of that stuff has been updated. They're very meticulous about it. And those properties, usually we don't do an as-is sale just because maybe the kitchens and the bathrooms needed to be updated. As-is usually comes in a little bit more when there's some bigger issues with the house than anybody wants to spend.
Absolutely. And the mindset around the offers that you receive, typically those are investors. And so when you're looking at comparable properties for pricing that, the same way the investor buying it is going to be doing that calculation. It's, the price of buying the property plus the work that they would need to do to bring it up to, something that they could rent or resell. And finding that there's still that value for them to put the work in.
Right.
So you have to look at that. It's not that they're just lowballing, you as an insult or anything like that. It's a equation for them of the work involved to bring it back up to the comparables in the neighborhood.
And to be honest, usually those are win-win situations, because the investor is going to find a property that has some room in it for them to make money, because why would they do it if they can't make any money? There's no goal there for them. So it's usually that that has enough room in there for them to make some money, and the person that's selling it wants to sell it really quickly. For whatever reason, it's time for that property be off of their plate and onto someone else's, and either the amount of money isn't important or it just needs to happen quickly so that they can move on to their next step.
And oftentimes the alternative would be having investing that money out of your own means to bring it up to that higher selling value. And in these situations, that's usually not something that is feasible. And that's why we're in that situation. So it's a really great option to handle the property in a quick and easy way.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of a hybrid between fixing things up and selling it as is. If the house has been in really good repair and there might just be a few things that need to be done, and the person that owns it doesn't have the means to do it, or the family doesn't have the means to do it, we can negotiate the repairs to be paid out of the proceeds of the closing. And so there is some ways to do that if there are just little repairs. So you're not putting it in a kind of an as-is situation. So you need to just hire a real estate agent who is really competent in knowing all the different ways to handle things. And so if you need help with that, please let us know. We have fantastic agents all over the country that we can hook you up with, or talk to us in our area. But you want to make sure that you have somebody who really understands all the different ways that you can negotiate it out.
Yeah, it can get you the best outcome for your situation.
Yep. So you want to disclose, if you're doing as is, you do want to disclose anything that you know is wrong with the property. If it leaks in the basement, or if the roof is bad, or whatever that is, you do want to let that be known, just to avoid honestly being sued later.
Yeah.
There are disclosures that you need to fill out, and so just be very honest with those disclosures and say, hey, the roof's bad, or whatever, and then they're going to buy it at that price because it's a good price for the market of that property. So it's not like if you disclose something, they're not going to buy it.
Right.
It's more like you're just protecting yourself from any kind of legal problems in the future around that property. So you want to make sure everybody knows everything, and once they know it, they buy it. Now it's on their plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So sometimes strategic home improvements can, bring some gains to what you receive from the house. So we can talk about, some things that can oftentimes bring a higher ROI, painting to neutral, fresh colors. Fresh paint makes a world of difference.
It really does.
In a
And
house.
paint is not that expensive. I mean, everything's an expense, but paint is not that expensive, especially if you're just painting the wall colors and you're not doing the baseboards. And gosh, you can change the look of a house immediately. Just with some paint.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes flooring repairs or replacement, or professional cleaning of the floors, the whole house actually. But cleaning carpets, even if you are knowing in your head, oh, a buyer's going to want to replace this carpet or replace this flooring, spending a little bit of money to have it cleaned really does change when people come in to look at the house. Even if they are going to replace it, there's something that happens with that.
So
cleaning.
Here's the thing. Buying a house is very emotional. And so people have an emotional response to the house as soon as they walk in. You have a couple of seconds for them to have that emotional response for the house, and they're deciding, oh my gosh, this is for me, or I could start to see myself here, or nope, I'm not doing that. And so the thing about carpeting, and if it's very used, very well worn, is that can really kind of turn people off emotionally for the house. And so carpeting or professional cleaning, if you can kind of get any stains up or anything like that, the cleaner the house is, the more people respond positively to it. And there could be nothing wrong with the house at all, except it's just not clean, and you will lose quite a bit of money from your price, because they equate it not being clean with you not taking care of it in every way. Yeah. So then it starts to emotionally spin into, and they probably,
didn't do this, didn't do
clean,
that.
Yeah, the furnace is bad, and the roof is, even if it's not, like, it just kind of turns into this whole thought process. So clean. And so potentially replacing carpet can make a huge difference in the emotional response that people have when they first come in the house. Same for smells. If the house has a smell, getting rid of that smell is very important for that first response that people have when they come into the house.
Absolutely. And having carpets cleaned is a major step when there's smells in the house, because it just lingers in all of those soft surfaces.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can do minor updates to a room, like hardware or faucets or a new mirror. If something is just a very dated look, those can be relatively inexpensive to just change those accessories of a room.
Yeah, sometimes in a bathroom, if you just put up a different mirror over the sink and a different lighting fixture, it can make a big change in the bathroom.
Yeah, changing your kitchen faucet to something that looks more current, not even a super expensive model, but just something more current can have a big change. Front door and curb appeal touch-ups. That's huge. We've talked about that on another episode about getting your home ready to sell, and the buyers are going to be standing there for a pause. You said this on the last episode. The agent is going to be there dealing with the lockbox and getting things opened and, doing what they do. And the buyer's just, standing around and looking up. And if you have cobwebs on the front porch or, leaves and debris in the corners, things like that, that will be noticed, and that impression carries on as they enter in. So don't forget that crucial space of making that as fresh and welcoming as you can.
Yeah, a fresh coat of paint on the front door, if it's chipped or really faded, sometimes the way the sun hits houses, the paint on the front door can be really faded. And I notice many times when I go to a listing appointment, the paint on the inside, like the threshold of the door around it, the top and the sides, is peeling. And people don't pay attention. You just don't pay attention to that stuff. But when you're standing there and that's all you have to look at, and that's the first impression, and people are like, oh gosh, they don't even, like, the first thing I'm seeing is, there's not enough paint on the,
Yeah. Honestly, we all go through our front doors so seldom. Most of us are going in through the garage or a side door. And so we don't enter our home in the path that we're going to take buyers through. So just go stand on your front porch, stand outside your front door, and just put new eyes on, what that looks like. And super inexpensive to do a few of those things. Put out, a seasonal appropriate flower, flowers in the spring, or a winter, evergreen, or, fall mums. Super easy to just add a little color and freshness.
Yes. And honestly, when I tell people that paint is chipping, like 95% of the time, they're like, what? And they just, they don't even know, because we don't go through our front doors often. We just come in the garage.
So a couple things when we talk about, how much to do or not do, a couple red flags that just must be addressed. If you have water intrusion, leaky pipes, anything involving water, get it fixed. You can decide on, the repair around it at a later date, but fix that ASAP.
Water can just be so damaging, and it can just filter in, and it actually ties right into the next thing, which is mold.
Right. Next comes mold. The water intrusion could be a leaky roof. Make sure you get that repaired. Don't, address any potential mold issues, because it will get out of control. If you've got electrical issues or anything that's a safety issue, that's going to need to be addressed. Fix it now for your own safety while you're in the house, but definitely that's not a question. If you have HVAC or other major mechanicals that just are not working, let's talk about that, because that's going to be an item that a buyer just expects any house to have those things working.
Yeah. Things that will also cause some problems are any kind of broken windows, things like that. So as you go through the house, if you know for sure that there are certain things that aren't working, talk to your realtor about those things and what kind of implication those are going to have. Some mortgages won't even allow you to get the mortgage if there's certain things that are not Right. So peeling paint and broken windows and things like that will be problematic if you're trying to get an FHA or a VA loan, along with any kind of water intrusion and things like that. So make sure that you talk to your agent if you think you might not want to fix something, and know what the ramifications are and if that's going to narrow your buyer pool.
Yeah, and even things that feel small in the moment that you might have be dealing with and avoiding, but just a leaky pipe under a sink then can ruin that vanity, and then can ruin the flooring, and that it just snowballs into big issues. So get the repair, stop the problem right away, and then we can help with a strategy around cosmetically fixing around that.
Right. So prioritizing your updates. Your questions you're going to want to ask yourself: is it going to improve the photos and the first impressions? So, painting that front door is definitely going to improve that first impression. Painting out really bright rooms will improve your photos. So when you're walking through a house, it is a different experience than when you're photographing a house. And so very bright things really show up in photographs. I'm very picky about this. So when we do photographs for our properties, we just kind of have a lot of conversations about what that's going to look like in the photograph, because honestly, the photograph is going to sell your house, because people are looking online, and if they don't like what they see, they may not come to even see it. And so we need to make sure that we've got great photos and that they are presenting the house in the best way that they can. So that's the question. Number one, when you're looking at updates, is it going to improve the photos and the first impressions?
Yeah, absolutely. Is it something that will come up in an inspection and potentially derail the offer that you've received? You don't want to go through this, be under contract, be excited, have a solution, be ready for your next step, and then that gets derailed and you're back, a few steps back on the market again. It's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for your timeline.
It will lose you money, honestly, if you have to, do a path of coming back on the market.
Absolutely. And, the time is money as well. So
Right.
in both ways, you're losing money. So if there are things that are just going to be a hurdle, and again, we can advise on those things that we see often and give that suggestion.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, you have to address it now or later in the money or the time.
Right.
So let's come up with the best strategy for addressing it.
And sometimes it doesn't mean you have to fix it, but you have to acknowledge it and tell somebody you're going to fix it. And maybe you need to go get
Quote.
a quote around it, and so how much it is when they ask for it.
Yeah.
Because the third priority is, will buyers expect it at this price point? And so if they are expecting something and it's not something that you can do, you maybe want to pay that out of your proceeds of your house. Maybe you have a cracked window and the window's just not going to come in time in the 30 days that you might have to sell the property. Once they get under contract, then you can have a quote. You can pay that out of the proceeds, but you can know what you're looking at, how much it's going to be. They can know how much it's going to be and who's going to be fixing it. Again, it's just making sure that they're understanding what the problems are and how they're going to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you don't want to overspend on your updates that reflect your tastes versus your buyer's expectations. So be careful of this when you're picking paint colors. We're going to tell you to pick super neutral ones. If you're going to be selling the property, make the next house the one that's absolutely you. And if you love bright colors, that's great, but put that in the next one. In this one, you have to almost think about it like it's not yours anymore. Now your whole purpose is, how is that going to convey in photographs, and how is that going to look when people come to see the property? So and there are some updates that I think you shouldn't do if you're thinking about buying, even if it needs to be done. For example, usually all new windows are not going to give you the return on investment, even if the house does need new windows. So there's some things that we can talk about if you're really thinking about selling right away that you maybe should not do.
Yeah, so in that strategy session, as we talk about all of this, where we typically land is that middle ground. And it's a combination of some smart ideas on what you should do, the right price for that final product, and, not overspending on things you don't need to do.
Yeah.
So it's just a plan put into action and matching the market that we're in now.
Yeah. So you don't have to, it's not all or nothing. You don't have to fix every single thing. There are some things, again, which the power of clean is I cannot speak enough about how important it is to clean.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about things that you don't clean, you don't think about cleaning, like the grates for your intake of your furnace. They get dusty. Your baseboards get dusty.
Ceiling fans.
Your ceiling fans get dusty. And this is stuff that we don't even look at. And when I point it out, people are like, ooh, and it's okay because we all live with, things. But people really see that when they're looking at the house with fresh eyes.
Yeah. I think, too, something we see a lot on listings we see in our MLS, but what we talk about on so many of our episodes is the stuff, and having those clear, not only the house being clean, but clean of too much stuff. And we see, people with their photos online, and it's just crazy how much stuff is on the counters or things on tables, laundry piled up, and they need the advice of a smart realtor showing them that, and that's usually just a no cost besides your own, sweat equity to get things moved out of the house, donated, listen to all the other episodes about how to get rid of that stuff, but streamlining it so you have very clear spaces that are then clean and easy for a buyer to see the house itself.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. If you went into a new home that was a model home, you would not see their laundry sitting anywhere. You would not see little piles of stuff in the corners of the rooms because,
the mail pile,
right?
the
And or people put things in the corners of the rooms, or extra chairs and step stools and all kinds of things that just little things that sit around, baskets of things and whatever. You don't see any of that in a model home. You don't see the counter covered with, little tchotchkes and all kinds of things in the kitchen. It's just one or two or nothing on the, kitchen counters, not much. And so just think about, it is not like you live. That's all I always tell people. Nobody lives the way that I want to see it.
Yeah.
When you're making it the way that it needs to look for pictures.
Yeah. So clean, clear, and staged. Even if your home is older, even if there isn't fresh updates of major things throughout, those three things will really just make a better first impression for someone to know that you put some work into getting it ready. The staging, which when I say staging, I'm not talking like rented furniture staging, just using what you have and clearing out what is extra. That really focuses the attention on the strengths of the house, not the flaws, because they're not looking again at that. Well, if they couldn't even get the laundry put away before showings, what else did they not do?
Yeah, because if you have clothes laying around or an extra, outside clothes rod that's in your guest room or whatever, people automatically are like, well, there is not enough storage in this house.
Yeah.
And you know that because you live there. And maybe there isn't enough storage, or maybe we haven't listened to all our other episodes and let go of some of our things. But you don't want that message. What's the message that the buyer is going to get from looking at whatever's happening in the house? And you don't want the message to be, hey, there's just not enough storage. There's not enough room to live in this house.
Yeah.
You don't want that. So we're selling space, and the way that you sell space is to have some things, but not many things. So the less things, people are able to see the space better.
Yeah, absolutely. And they see that there is space for their stuff.
Yes, right.
They can't imagine it when it's overpacked.
Right.
Yeah. So really in the planning of this, like Jody has said, and we've said before, it is so much better to have us out well in advance of trying to choose any of these things on your own. Come up with that checklist of things you should do, gives yourself time to, reach out to any contractors you need, have them out, have things on order, get things cleaned out, clean, ready to go. And so you just have that checklist, which you can work your way down. And it's the process, so you're not second guessing, will this sell, what price, really come up with that strategy. The questions that we will be looking at and the questions you can be asking yourself is, again, will this repair increase the buyer appeal or reduce your inspection risk? Can I do this without delaying my move? And that's back to knowing what is most important for your situation. Is it the quick sale, which would be less to do up front, or is it the very top dollar and you have some time or a little resources to turn that into more money? Is the upgrade expected for your price range and neighborhood? And if the upgrade is not in the strategy, that's okay. That's just back to pricing it accordingly.
That's like, in some neighborhoods, granite countertops might be too much, or some specific upgrade might just be more than you need to do. And so that's a question that honestly a real estate agent can answer for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Always asking if you'll get the money back, return on investment in the sale, and is it emotionally worth it to me? Some people are just like, I just
need
want
to be out,
to be done with this.
Yeah.
And, so we'll go where we're at now and we're good with that, because most important is just moving on to the next chapter.
And a really good real estate agent will ask you all the questions to figure out what your motivation really is and help you meet that motivation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that, professional opinion, the agent should be walking through the property with you, looking at things that might be inspection issues and helping you coordinate those and helping recommend what you should or shouldn't do as far as, any staging or removal of items and just minimalizing those things in the house.
Some areas will do pre-inspections, get an inspection first. That's, I think, locally, whether that is your area or not. And then sometimes you can have a stager come and consult. And sometimes a stager will come and just tell you what to do with your own things and just say, hey, in this room do this, this, and this. In this room do this, this, and this. This needs to go. Move this couch over here. And they can just kind of tell you what to do. And sometimes we have staging where we actually bring furniture in. And that will depend on the price range of your house and, what the market is looking like and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you have questions about any of this, about what you should do as is, etc., fixing up, whatever, please reach out to us. We're happy to help. If you're in our area, we're happy to come and talk to you about your house specifically. Or if you are somewhere else, we have great agents all over the country that can do this as well. So downsizingroadmap.com, reach out to us. We would love to help you get yourself ready.
Yeah, the good news is, we can help you with that strategy, and then you get to choose, which option fits your energy and your timeline and your goals. So we're excited to help you and look forward to hearing from you.
Yep.
All right. See you next time.
Next time.
Thanks for joining us on the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little downsizing inspiration. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? Reach out to us on our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Until next time, let's keep simplifying and moving forward.